Hello there everybody, this is Myeth, and today we're going to talk about the next expansion of the World of Warcraft. Today's topic is what's missing. There are a lot of elements from the Warcraft RTS games, comics, and lore that have yet to make an appearance in the World of Warcraft universe. When we look at all the things not yet explored on the planet of Azeroth, we come up with a list of things that could potentially be in a future expansion. Good news for those of you worried about the fact that a future expansion might be all underwater zones. I get a lot of that. There's a lot of islands that could possibly be used in future areas of an expansion that have not yet been in World of Warcraft. Sure, there are a lot of things under the ocean that we might be able to fight, but a majority of the content yet to appear in WoW are the South Seas Islands. So, do not fret, my friends. So, let's go into some of the places that are missing first off here. We have Kultiris. It should be off the western coast of the Eastern Kingdoms, somewhere near Gilneas, but it is not in the game. The closest that we got to was the prison island of Kultiris, known as Tol Barad, which was a PvP zone, if you remember, in Cataclysm. The Cataclysm beta actually had the guards by the Tol Barad portal wearing Kultiris tabards, and that was changed when the game went live, so that was taken out. A couple things that are by Kultiris are the island of Zuldair and Crestfall, and those are off the coast of Kultiris. Another thing that is not in the game that potentially could be in the game is the Stormwind Vault. There are actually two prisons in Stormwind. Other than the stockades, there's one that we have never seen, and it's said to house magical and other beings. The doorways to it are blocked off now, but previously in the game you could look in to see the entrance. Another place that has not yet been opened in Azeroth, that's not on those islands, is Karazhan Crypts. Now this is the resting place of Medivh and possibly Aegwynn, who had connections to story and lore of Sargeras. It has not been added to the game because it was deemed to be too dark and evil. As you can see there's a bunch of corpses floating upside down in the water. Yeah, kind of dark. Another thing that's actually missing from the game, even though we've seen it when we had the Goblin starting area in Kazan, is Undermines. Now, as you can see here, this picture is from the back when they were just making and thinking of things to put in World of Warcraft. That is the island of Kazan. Now, the port that you see on there is very small, and there's also Mount Kajaro and a lot of other places. But the rest of Kazan is something that we haven't seen. We've only got to see a small port town in Kazan, but it's much larger, and there's a city underneath it known as Undermine. And if on this map, in the early development maps of World of Warcraft, Kazan and Undermine are a travel hub between Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms. Also on that map is Nazjatar and the Maelstrom, and the Tomb of Sargeras, and some other islands. But as you can see, that is where Pandaria is now, but there are other things that we'll go into here. For example, there's a wealth of other islands in the South Seas, which are north of Pandaria, and between Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms, that have never been in the game. That particular picture is from the World of Warcraft RPG. For example, Telebeam. Not much is known about Telebeam, other than it has bananas there. However, the Telebeam banana is actually an important ingredient in a hidden recipe in Mist Pandaria, which will turn you into a drunken hosen. Another one of those South Seas islands that we have not seen yet in the game, and it's very important, is the heart of the Troll Empire, Zandalar. Now that's the seat of power for the Trolls, which is apparently broken in half by the Cataclysm, and it lies somewhere in the South Seas. On the island of Zandalar are the various troll tribes and the brooding king Rosticon. The Prophet Zul is mainly responsible for the troll incursion into Pandaria, though. Another place that we haven't seen in the World of Warcraft, and is in the South Seas, is Plunder Isle. This is the home of many a pirate. Plunder Isle is basically a pirate hideaway in the South Seas. Of note here is Bloodsail Hold. Now, Plunder Isle has yet to be seen in WoW, but there are Bloodsail buccaneers usually hanging out near Booty Bay. Plunder Isle was also a scenario, I believe, in Warcraft 3, or a map. Another place that has not been in World of Warcraft, and it's sort of in the South Seas, is Gilligam's Isle. The name still exists in that area in the game, but the island is no longer there. It was in the alpha and on many early maps in the game, and that's off the coast of Stranglethorn Vale. Another island that's pretty close to that one is called the Island of Dr. Lepidus. It's another lost island that was in the alpha version of WoW but was removed. It's most likely a reference to the Isle of Dr. Moreau. On the island there were a lot of troll ruin type architecture, and it used to be off the coast of Stranglethorn Vale. 2. Then there's this. Of importance to those Burning Legion fanboys out there are the ruins of Suramar, the ancient Night Elf city, risen from the ocean by Gul'dan to become the Broken Isles, which is the home of the ruins of the Tomb of Sargeras. Now, the Tomb of Sargeras is where an item called the Eye of Sargeras might be, if it wasn't destroyed by the collapse of most of the Tomb of Sargeras in Warcraft 3. Now, another important part is Nazjatar. This is the domain of Queen Azara, under the ocean, and where the Nagas are based out of. And that particular picture there is actually from Developer's Isle, and that particular building has not been seen in the game yet. But think about it: if there was going to be, a Queen Azara palace, that would be a pretty good one right there. Nazjatar is pretty close to the Maelstrom, actually. This is an interesting unused area or art from BlizzCon showing an area in Cataclysm that has yet to be seen in WoW, which could point to some future thing happening, maybe Nazjatar emerging from the sea. So maybe no underwater zone for the Naga city. You could breathe your sigh of relief right there. Now, something else that was missing and wasn't in the game is the Abyssal Maw. This is a raid that was supposed to be in Cataclysm, where we would fight to save Neptulon, but it was scrapped. And that's Neptulon. Another place that's not in the game, but has been mentioned, is Ny'alotha. This is where the last old god, N'Zoth, lies sleeping. It is mentioned by the puzzle box of Yogg-Saron, and also by Ysarge in the Garrosh encounter. That's connected to the Rift of Aln, which technically is in the Emerald Dream, but is connected to the area of the Maelstrom and the rift that lies in the ocean beneath it. N'Zoth, who lies underneath the ocean in Ny'alotha, could be the Nightmare Lord influencing the Emerald Dream. I'm throwing in a few more places here that, yes, are missing in the game, but have probably less likely as they're not fleshed out enough to be in the game, or technically they're too far away in content right now. The first thing is the Emerald Dream. As there's no real reason to go in venturing there just yet, no immediate threat, save for whatever's in the Rift of Aln, we might not see the dream in this coming expansion, but it might be in a future one. Then there's Argus. I see a lot of people saying, oh, we're going to go to Argus in the next expansion. Probably not. The homeworld of the Eridar and the base of the Burning Legion, that's what Argus is. Blizzard have stated they want to stay on Azeroth for a few more expansions. Furthermore, if we did go to Argus to face Sargeras, it would be end of WoW content. That would be like saying, okay, we made it to the end of the game. So, probably won't see that anytime soon. Now, let me talk about a few people that are missing from the game. Characters that haven't really seen much, they haven't had much screen time in the World of Warcraft, or they have yet to really make their mark on the world in some way, and they're probably planning something. First of all, there's Jaster Gallywix. He's supposed to be the head of the Goblins, but you know what? I have never seen him in the game. I saw him in the Kazan and Lost Isles quests, but you never again, after you get to Kalimdor or anywhere else, see him in the game. What is he up to, other than making a pleasure palace? There's some short stories that mention him, and a short story that stars him, but in the game, where is he? Haven't seen him. Another character, or, well, I should say an elemental lord that's missing, is Neptulon. He was kidnapped by the Prince of the Dark below, Azimat. The elemental lord of water is probably being used for some evil purpose. Especially, because the Nagas want control of the water. So, another character that we have not seen in the game, only briefly in a dream or a vision sequence, is King Rostakon. He's the king of the trolls on the island of Zandalar. He's kind of just sitting there in the middle of a ruined temple, apparently. Now, the most obvious character that we haven't seen, well, maybe once or twice. I think we saw her in a flashback kind of thing in Caverns of Time, is Ashara. Once beautiful, now corrupted by the old gods, this Queen of the Naga is probably plotting something big under the ocean in the city of Nazjatar. Now, of course, there's Enzoth, one of the remaining unseen old gods who is responsible for the corruption of Deathwing, Ashara, and possibly many others. I'm throwing these in here too because they're technically missing, but they're probably pretty far off in terms of content and what might be in the next game. There's Illyria and Terralion. It's in a tip on the loading screen. No one has seen them in years. But they disappeared in Outlands, not in Azeroth, so they might not be seen for a while. Of course, there's Medan, which is a comic book only character. He's kind of a mixture of too many weird things to appear in World of Warcraft, but he's related to the story of Garona, Medivh, and Edgewin, and one of the Guardians of Tirisfal. But I don't think we'll see him anytime soon. Illidan. No, just kidding. Illidan's dead. Deal with it. Lastly, there's Sargeras. Certainly, end of the whole game content. I mean, what would draw the Corrupted Titan and his Burning Legion to Azeroth? There would have to be a reason, right? Anyway, let's talk about races that are missing, because everybody thinks that there will be a new race in the game. But it's not very likely that we'll see a new race in the next expansion, as a lot of those assets are tied up in updating the existing vanilla and BC player models. But, you know, let's look at which races have yet to be in the game as playable races. First of all, there's Nagas. They're really elves, corrupted by the old gods, and cursed to live under the ocean. They're pretty much ruled by Queen Azshara. Now, if there were to become playable races, they'd have to find some way to become less corrupted by the old gods, you know? Their main problem is armor. Anything displaying below the waist probably wouldn't be visible. So, how do you put armor on a Naga? Now, I would go so far as to say if they wanted to put these guys in the game, maybe have Neptulon decurse some of them, just like the Windlord in Uldum decursed some of the Tol'vir to turn them back into stone. Elemental Lords could probably do that sort of thing, and have them look more like a reptilian kind of high elf looking thing, and then they could have legs, and maybe they can have like a second form thing where they have a tail. See? There you go. You could have Nagas that were like sort of uncorrupted, just like you have Worgen. Anyway, another race that's missing from the game are ogres. Well, okay. This is really like an April Fool's Day joke at one point, that ogres were going to be in the game. Did they have two heads? Do you get one? Well, and also there are no female ogres in the game. That's one of the problems. But they're definitely a horde race, and there's a lot of half ogres that were aligned with the horde at some point, especially Rexxar. And I know we'll see Rexxar again someday. Of course, there's also high elves. They're basically blood elves with blue eyes, more or less. I mean, they weren't corrupted by the fell magic that a lot of the blood elves were. So, there's that. They're possibly aligned with the Alliance. But the big question would be, where would their starting area be, as Quel'Thalas is basically taken over by the Blood Elves. So, that's, you know, there isn't really a place for them to have a starting area. Another race that's missing is the Arakoa. It's a sentient race, but they were basically in Outlands, and they weren't really native to Azeroth. They're kind of oddly shaped. They do have some animations, but putting armor on them is kind of an issue. Another interesting race that could be playable but is missing are Ethereals. Again, they were also only in Outlands, but you know, we see them a lot more as Reforgers and Void Storage guys, so maybe. But again, there's a whole issue with armor, and how do you have armor on them display so that you can still kind of tell they're Ethereals, because they look basically like a human model but glowy and see-through. So those are just a few of the races that are missing from the game. Let me talk about a few of the classes that are missing. Keep in mind that only one class, if there is going to be a new class in the next expansion, is going to make it. So not all of these are possible classes, but there are classes that are missing from the game, and I'm just throwing a few of them out there. So one of the classes that I hear a lot mentioned is Tinker. And they would have, I don't know what, engineering-based attacks. But we already have engineering in the game, so that niche is probably covered. Again, there's a limited number of races, lore-wise, that are Tinkerers. You have gnomes and goblins, you know, basically. And they do have clockwork gnomes in the game, more or less, through engineering, but I haven't seen any clockwork goblins. And that would be interesting to see if there was a Tinker class, but I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon because it doesn't really match with a theme, unless you had a steampunk themed expansion. Now another class that's missing from the game that they said that they want to do at some point was Necromancer. It's really a niche that's been covered by Death Knights and Warlocks. Although it would be interesting to see a Necromancer that had like a Lich form that you could, like, you know, the tree form for druids. That'd be kind of neat. Another thing that I hear, and I hear this a lot, especially about the next expansion, is Demon Hunter. Now that would be relevant in a Burning Legion expansion, but a lot of their spells have already been taken by the Warlock class. And again, we'd have another melee class in the game. As you know, the Monk is a melee class, the Death Knight is a melee class, so two of the more recent classes that they've added to the game are melee classes, so it doesn't really seem like they would add another melee class to the game right now. Now, I do hear Bard thrown around a lot as a class that's missing from the game, but obviously this is an April Fool's joke that they put in one time, and even if they did, it would really be a support or a buff-only class, as, you know, how would you attack people with a guitar? Anyway, another idea I see a lot in the forums is Dragonsworn. Well, that sounds like a cool idea. You can align yourself with a dragonflight, but which one do you work with? And it really comes down to this sounds a lot like something from Skyrim. So, maybe not. I've already made a video on the Time Walkers and how that might be a new class. They would work with the Bronze Dragons to protect the Time Ways, and they already have sort of 3 specs. They have Warden, Weaver, and Watcher. So, watch this space, because I'm thinking that they might one day make Time Walkers or some aspect of that a class. Now, my prediction for a South Seas or ocean-based expansion would be Buccaneer and or Pirate. See, you could have a class here that would use ranged weapons as well as swords and rapiers and other things. You could definitely make it a ranged class. A lot of the Defias and other pirate enemies I've seen in the game do have a lot of range attacks as well as being able to shoot water out of their hands, which is kind of neat. That would be an interesting thing. So, those are just a few of the classes that are missing from the game, but here's a list of features that WoW has been promising for some time now that could be in a future game. Of course, there's player housing, and we kind of got teased with that with the farm in Pandaria, because there you go, you have a farm of your own, and it sort of has a house in it. It's been an idea that has never really made it into the game. A lot of people always suggest, why don't you guys make player housing? Why don't you guys make player housing? And they're kind of edging towards that. The farm in Pandaria was an experiment, it seems like. Another thing that has not been put into the game, and we've kind of been teased about too, is woodworking. You can make staff, bows, boats, and all kinds of other things. Carts, you know, you can make that sort of thing with woodworking. I say woodworking because one of the resources in all the Warcraft games was gathering wood. You would build a lumber mill, and that was part of the game. So maybe that'll work its way into a future WoW expansion. Another thing that is missing, or a feature that they're working on, is updated player models. So the player models from Vanilla and BC don't have as many awesome polygons as Cataclysm and Mist Pandaria new races do. And Blizzard said they wanted to work on this. But the real challenge with that is making sure they don't look too unfamiliar to what we've already done to make a character. We have a character and they look a certain way. We want them to have more expression. We want them to, have more facial features defined, but they don't want to look too different than the way that we've designed our character. So that's important to strike that balance there as far as updated player models go. Now, another thing that they've promised us is the dance studio, and that was promised back in Wrath. They said new dances, and of course we're still waiting on the dance studio. Another thing that they could possibly put in the game that they scrapped back in Cataclysm was the Path of the Titans. It was supposed to be a Cataclysm feature, but it didn't make it into the game. It looks like it's something to supplement the glyph system with a non-class specific ways to progress your character. And that would be really interesting. You choose a path, and then your character gains those specific things on the path. So that was cool. Another feature missing from the game is a moose. I mean, seriously, Ghostcrawler, where the hell is my moose? Been waiting for this moose. Where is it? Anyway, next up in part 3 of this series, I want to talk about what might be kind of interesting story developments that might be in the next WoW expansion. And also what will likely not be in the next WoW expansion. Woohoo! Speculation! So, thanks for watching. If you can think of any more places, races, classes, or features I didn't mention in this video, please leave a comment. Alright? Okay, thank you. And if you like this video, subscribe, like, and follow me on Twitter and Twitch and LiveJournal and a bunch of other places. So, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.